everything I've ever written was brilliant. Every line of dialogue, every scene description, every transition are complete and total masterpieces. The best thing ever written in the history of humanity. And that's honestly how I've felt writing for the last number of years. Then there's a switch. And what happens is that I walk away from it and I sit down and I start to read it. And I become a different person. I become my own biggest critic. I look at it and I try to tear it apart as much as I can. And the amazing thing is that a lot of it's really bad. Feedback in every stage of the process is important. Also, the other thing about feedback is that if you get lots of feedback from different sources, while all that feedback might not be relevant, you'll start to see patterns. And then you'll go, oh wow, everybody's confused or bored at this one point. Why is that? It's hard to get feedback from people, especially if you're a little insecure or maybe you don't have a lot of experience. It's always gonna sting because it always seems personal.
I used to be, obviously, years ago, it used to be really hard for me, like anybody, you spend all this time building something and then people come and they criticize it and it's probably legitimate. You almost don't want to hear it. You kind of think in your head during the whole time that people are critiquing your work, the whole time you're just justifying why what they're saying is not right, or it's like, and it's like you spend all this justification time, and now I find that I can sit pretty straight-faced through some pretty nasty commentary on my stuff, like searching for the kernel in there that's going to help me make it better.
Well, the funny thing is when you're writing or producing or editing, you want feedback. The more negative, the more constructive, the better, because this is going to make it better. And then there's a point where it's finished. You don't want to hear anything at that point.
It's important to love what you're doing. It's important to feel that what you're doing is great, and then it's important to tear it apart and deconstruct it so you can make it better. Because one bad idea actually leads to a stream of really good ideas.
I always focus on the negative. I usually write one sentence about, hey, it's great, I love it. But you want constructive criticism. You want to know what's wrong, not what's right. You take for granted whatever I didn't comment about was right.
I always try and list the real strong points, because usually something always has something strong to it.
Right after that, I dedicate a half sentence to all the strong points. I put them all in one.
Yeah. I'd start with the strength, and this is, I think, actually a formula. So I do it naturally, but somebody, I think, told me this is actually a formula for doing this. But you do sort of start positive, then get into the criticism, and then end positive, right? Walk away with a positive, and I kind of get that.
I do the same formula, but after you read what I've written, it's like just by volume, there's like 1% of it might be positive, even though I've placed them at the beginning and the end.
All the criticism that I've received ultimately has only made me better at what I do, and so I want to say thank you to everybody who ever said a terrible thing about me and my work.